Buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Muy feliz de ver tantas personas aquí hoy. Mi nombre es Ricardo Murillo y yo trabajo en la Escuela de Biología y estoy ayudando para que todo esto que vemos hoy sea una realidad. Quisiera comentarles un poco nada más sobre la importancia que tiene para mí esta colección. Yo conocí la colección del señor Richard Whitten cuando tenía 5 años. Mi papá me llevó a conocer el Museo Joyas del Trópico Húmedo que quedaba en Santo Domingo de Heredia, y eso sirvió como un gran estímulo y para que yo coleccionara también insectos y me decidiera a estudiar insectos el resto de mi vida. Quedé apasionado y marcó prácticamente toda mi vida, y por eso hoy estoy muy orgulloso de poder ser parte de esta actividad. Cuando me enteré que iba a ocurrir, yo quería ser ahí como el que estuviera metido en todo, porque para mí es muy importante lo que Richard y Margaret Whitten han hecho en Costa Rica, en educación, en ejemplo. Y pues ahora no voy a robar mucho show, nada más quisiera darle la palabra a varias personas que han sido verdaderamente los actores detrás de esto. Entre ellos quisiera darle la palabra a doña Eugenia Zabaleta, la directora del programa Museo más UCR, y por favor.
Buenos días, realmente es un gusto tenerlos acá, agradecerles que nos acompañen en este momento tan importante, especialmente para el Museo más UCR. Hace 13, 14 años justamente comenzamos con el proyecto del museo. Era como un sueño allá muy lejano, ¿verdad?, que empezamos a empujar, y gracias al apoyo, al trabajo integral en equipo, primero como Comisión Institucional de Colecciones, aquí hay varios de los compañeros que estuvieron en aquel momento, Rita, Federico, no sé si por ahí andará Mitzi, ¿verdad? Me acuerdo que de biología había una fuerte representación, ¿verdad? Y bueno, ese sueño ha ido poquito a poco cuajando. Ya en el 2010 el museo fue creado oficialmente, y bueno, hoy justamente se concreta parte de ese entusiasmo que comenzó en forma muy incipiente con esta exposición que evidencia lo que se puede hacer, el potencial de las colecciones, el potencial de la proyección que puede tener la universidad con una colección como esta, la Whitten, ¿verdad? No solo quedarnos dentro de la universidad, muy bien, investigando, haciendo cosas muy importantes, pero bueno, tenemos que llegar a la comunidad universitaria y por supuesto la comunidad nacional, ¿verdad? Y esta es una manera. Ahí está el potencial del museo, ¿verdad? Y no sería posible si no tenemos la colaboración de los biólogos, por ejemplo, y de muchas otras colecciones. La universidad cuenta con más de 70 colecciones. Les decía al principio que esto realmente es una satisfacción para nosotros, porque bueno, hoy inauguramos esta exposición. Hace un mes también inauguramos otra en la Escuela de Artes Plásticas, que de una vez los invito a que vayan a verla, todavía está hasta el 15 de noviembre. Y bueno, tener en un mismo mes 2 exposiciones de esta categoría, pues realmente nos alegra muchísimo. Y quiero nuevamente repetir, esto no se logra sin la ayuda de todos ustedes, ¿verdad? Quiero agradecerle a Gustavo por la confianza que depositó en nosotros para montar la exhibición. Les decía, trabajo en equipo, Ricardo, ¿verdad? Como curador de la exposición. Por ahí anda Viviana, que yo sé que ha sudado la pobre, ¿verdad? Ha sido, creo que no dormía, ¿verdad?, por esta exposición. Muchas gracias. Y bueno, al final, justamente quería dejar un agradecimiento y hacerlo muy, muy enfático a don Richard y a doña Margaret Whitten, ¿verdad?, por haber depositado la confianza de dejarnos esta queridísima colección para ellos, ¿verdad? Y bueno, aquí junto con Gustavo nosotros nos comprometemos a que vamos a velar por su colección, por una colección tan importante como esta. Muchísimas gracias.
buenos días, bienvenidos a todos. Lo que quiero hablar muy rápidamente es un par de ideas, un par de reflexiones que quiero compartir con ustedes. Yo creo que nosotros los humanos, la humanidad, ha tenido por siempre una gran admiración, una gran curiosidad por conocer acerca de otras especies, por estudiar y conocer mejor la naturaleza. Posiblemente es esa la curiosidad, la fuente que inicia estos estudios, pero también, por supuesto, el uso de la diversidad ha sido muy importante para nosotros. La humanidad, nosotros somos hoy lo que somos en gran medida por el conocimiento que hemos generado acerca de la biodiversidad que tenemos. La biodiversidad con que contamos hoy en día nos ha permitido lograr grandes cosas. Y basta con que ustedes hagan el ejercicio todos los días, bueno, no sé todos los días, pero que por lo menos alguna vez hagan el ejercicio todos, que cuando se despierten empiecen a apuntar o a pensar cuánto usamos la diversidad, cómo usamos la naturaleza, cómo compartimos con otras especies. Yo creo que es evidente, se despierta uno y la cama donde dormimos es de madera. ¿De dónde viene esa madera? ¿Cuántos años tuvieron que pasar para que un árbol tuviera el grosor para poderlo cortar? Para que ese árbol tuviera flores, para que esas flores puedan llegar a ser visitadas por un polinizador, que entendiera las señales para encontrarse uno con el otro, que el polinizador lleve el polen al lugar correcto y que se reproduzca ese árbol, y luego el fruto, que llegue alguien a comerse el fruto y que deje la semilla en el lugar correcto. Ese es el primer ejercicio, con la cama en la que dormimos, pero así podemos hacerlo durante todo el día. La tela de la ropa, ¿de dónde sale esa tela de la ropa? ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué tuvo que suceder en la naturaleza para que tengamos esa tela? El gallo pinto, el arroz, frijoles, el huevo frito. O sea, durante el día podemos hacer una lista inmensa de cómo nosotros usamos la diversidad. El uso de esa diversidad ha generado grandes recursos, y un ejemplo específico que voy a dar son las guías que tenemos hoy en Costa Rica. Guías para interpretar la naturaleza, para interpretar la diversidad. Si ustedes caminan 100 metros en un bosque en Nicaragua, otro bosque en Panamá, posiblemente esos 100 metros son muy parecidos a los bosques de Costa Rica. Lo que hace una gran diferencia es que uno tiene una guía de aves, una guía de escarabajitos, una guía de murciélagos, una guía de orquídeas, un montón de información que hemos venido generando por años, que inician las primeras culturas. Entonces, a veces se nos olvida y pensamos de que la universidad, que el museo, que el instituto, no. El conocimiento de la diversidad lo iniciaron las primeras naciones en el país, las culturas indígenas. Hoy en día tenemos esas guías principalmente por el estudio de las colecciones. Las colecciones son donde se alberga el conocimiento de la biodiversidad. Son la fuente que nos ha ayudado a permitir generar muchos productos. Hoy aquí lo que estamos viendo es una colección que ha ayudado a generar ese conocimiento. La guía de aves de Costa Rica, ustedes saben que nos ha generado mucho dinero al país por turismo y otras cosas. No sale, por supuesto, de los 10 segundos que está usted contra luz viendo un pájaro en un árbol, bajo un aguacero, con zancudos, no sale de ahí. Sale el estudio de las colecciones. Las colecciones son muy importantes en el desarrollo de nuestro país y de la humanidad en general. Entonces hay que tenerlo presente. Yo nada más quiero agradecerles a ustedes que estén acá, que estén compartiendo con esto. En nombre del Museo de Zoología de la Universidad de Costa Rica, estoy seguro que cualquier persona que entre acá y disfrute, que se tome el tiempo de ver los colores, las formas, y que tenga la curiosidad de hacerse más preguntas acerca de los artrópodos que están disfrutando hoy, cuando salga por esa puerta va a ser una mejor persona. Esa es la idea. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a todos y todas ustedes por acompañarnos en la apertura de esta importante actividad. Les voy a contar un poquito la historia que nos tiene aquí reunidos. En el 2010, el profesor Paul Hanson llega a hablar conmigo sobre la mera posibilidad que los Witten donara esta colección a la Universidad de Costa Rica. Hablo de mera posibilidad porque estábamos compitiendo con universidades de Estados Unidos, el Smithsonian y otras instituciones que ya habían brindado oportunamente el interés a Margaret y a Richard de tener estas colecciones en sus respectivas instituciones. En aquel momento le dije a Paul, tenemos que ganar ese concurso, y aquí estamos reunidos porque ganamos el concurso. debemos darle todos los créditos a Paul, porque prácticamente si no hubiera sido la acción de él, no estaríamos acá. ¿Qué pasó después de eso? Después de eso vino, bueno, ya los Witten nos habían dicho que sí, que la donaban a la Universidad de Costa Rica por ciertas características que nosotros cumplíamos, pero tuvimos que adquirir, es mucha gente, yo adquirí el compromiso con don Richard y doña Margaret de hacer esta colección pública, de hacerla abierta para la comunidad nacional. Obviamente, en aquel entonces tuve que coordinar ciertas acciones con las autoridades universitarias antes de comprometerme a ello, y se pensaba que al cabo de 3 años iba a ser suficiente tiempo como para que tuviéramos una sala de exhibición en la Escuela de Biología para que la colección estuviera permanentemente en exhibición. No ocurrió así. Al inicio de este año, la fecha yo la tenía muy pendiente, y al inicio de este año yo estaba muy inquieto con el compromiso que había asumido con don Richard y doña Margaret, y de pura casualidad venía un día a almorzar aquí a esos lugares de afuera y vi unos bailes folclóricos que estaban exactamente en esta sala. Me llamó la atención la música que en ese momento estaban bailando y me asomé y dije en ese momento: esta va a ser la sala en la cual vamos a montar esta exhibición permanente. A inicios de año, aproximadamente febrero o marzo, convoqué a Paul, convoqué a Museo Más UCR, particularmente Eugenia, Félix, Marco y Ricardo, que en ese momento estaba coordinando el mariposario. Les hablé de la loca idea, porque en aquel momento era una ilusión, un sueño. Y fue así como asumimos el reto de montar esta exhibición bajo la coordinación de Ricardo Murillo, a quien también debemos el éxito, la calidad en compañía de Museo Más UCR de esta exhibición. Como le dije a Margaret y a Richard al inicio de esta mañana, aquí está el compromiso de nuestra parte. La exhibición no solo se va a exponer en esta sala de multiusos de la Escuela de Estudios Generales, sino que si ustedes ponen mucha atención, la portabilidad, no sé si existe ese término, la estructura de cada una de las donde están montadas las respectivas cajas, nos va a permitir que la podamos llevar a donde queramos, a cualquier parte del país, y no descartamos que incluso en algún otro país centroamericano. Entonces ya se están haciendo esfuerzos para llevarla a San Ramón, para llevarla a Punta Arenas, para llevarla al Atlántico, a la sede del Caribe, incluso la sede del Atlántico en Turrialba, y no descarto muchas otras oportunidades más para que la comunidad nacional tenga acceso en manos de esta colección a ese mensaje que, uniendo lo que Bernal nos acaba de representar, lo que significa la biodiversidad en nuestro país. Ya para terminar, y aquí traigo la lista para que no hayan malos entendidos y no dejar a nadie por fuera. Mi agradecimiento profundo obviamente a Paul Hanson, a Richard, Margaret, por la donación y por la buena selección que hicieron al donar esta colección. Museo Más UCR, Eugenia, Marco, Félix, al personal administrativo de la Escuela de Biología que han trabajado horas extra para que esto sea una realidad, al arquitecto Álvaro Vega, responsable de la calidad de la montada de la exposición, Vicerrectoría de Docencia, Investigación y Acción Social, quienes confiaron en nosotros de que esto iba a tener un impacto en la comunidad nacional, y agradezco a Alice que nos acompañe en esta importante actividad, a la Oficina de Asuntos Internacionales, quien nos apoyó con la traída de los Witten y el hospedaje de ellos durante estos días que van permanentemente. Ellos van a estar acompañando la exposición de aquí al sábado, y desde luego la Oficina de Divulgación, que siempre nos ayuda con la divulgación de nuestras actividades. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos de nuevo en esta importante actividad para la Escuela de Biología y para Museo Más UCR. Gracias.
Buenos días a todas y todas. Yo le decía ahora a Gustavo que principalmente yo asisto acá como una amante más de los insectos, mi relación, yo soy química, pero los insectos me dieron mi tesis de doctorado. Yo estudié mecanismos de comunicación entre insectos, las sustancias químicas que producen ciertos insectos que permiten comunicarse. El determinar esos componentes, pues me dieron mi doctorado. De ahí pues empieza una relación larga de cariño con los insectos, principalmente con sus antenas, que es lo que más busco, porque son los receptores importantísimos, pero igualmente con todos los aspectos de diversidad, porque el conocer los mecanismos de comunicación permite otras cosas, no solamente entender ciertos grupos de insectos, pero igualmente tiene otros beneficios en temas de, por ejemplo, de control biológico. Entonces, cada vez que hay una actividad de insectos me van a encontrar, y esta pues no es la excepción, muy contenta, orgullosa de ver todos estos, de ver esa maravilla que constituyen estos insectos interesantísimos, y que no solamente pensando en la universidad y esto día a día, sino todos los días nos vamos a encontrar con un insecto de alguna u otra forma, para bien, para mal, y el entenderlos, el conocerlos y el poder admirarlos además de otros sitios es fantástico. Mi agradecimiento entonces a todas estas personas que han mencionado, y muy especialmente a don Richard, a doña Margaret, por haber confiado en la Universidad de Costa Rica. Le aseguro que nosotros vamos a ser custodios de esta preciosa colección, la cual va a estar a disposición de todo el mundo, pero igualmente los vamos a cuidar y a cuidar como el gran tesoro que ha sido para ustedes. Así que muchas gracias, y gracias a todas y todos ustedes por estar acá.
We've got a sort of prepared speech here, but before anything, I want to thank Ricardo especially for how he's dealt with this collection. We are used to donating collections here and there and whatever, but usually they end up in some room that nobody ever sees, just stacked up. And he has the same passion that I have had all these years with the arthropods, and particularly the butterflies, and he's been doing a wonderful job, along with a number of other people, to make this in this beautiful format. I'm just overwhelmed with how everything looks, and particularly how it's going to be traveling. My speech, first of all, I don't know, I was here nearly 16 years with my wife Margaret in Costa Rica, but I never learned very much how to speak Spanish. I know palabras importantes like ¿Dónde está el baño? Cerveza Imperial, por favor. Muy linda muchachas. Pollo frito. But that doesn't get you very far. Anyhow, my speech, I guess, welcome to everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Indeed, it is an honor to have my personal collection. They tell me it's 69 boxes here, of a lifetime here at the University of Costa Rica for all students and for the general public to view. Margaret and I have realized that the Witten collection has been in Costa Rica now for 21 years. It has been on display at Silvatura Park in Monteverde for the past 10 years and continues there today. It has always been our intention, and that of Ilka and Thomas Wiedenmann, our good friends who have a flower farm here. They imported the collection to Costa Rica for us, or made the arrangements, which were very complex, so that we could have it to use for education. Tourism has proved to be the key to our outreach and education with my collection of mostly tropical arthropods. Are all of you, how many of you are biology students or know what arthropods are? Everybody knows what an arthropod is? Is there anyone who doesn't know what an arthropod is? No, okay, good, don't have to do anyhow, tourism has proved to be our key outreach and education program with my collection of tropical arthropods. Bridging the gap between institutions and the general public through arthropod education has always been my goal, and I must mention that my wife Margaret, with her capacity for Scottish economy and her arthropod storytelling ability, has certainly helped us in that regard. This, my personal collection, which you see here today, was donated to the university at the time when I realized that I was leaving Costa Rica and returning to the United States to be with my family there after having no Christmases for over 16 years. Christmas was always important in our family, and Santa Claus was not there. I realized how much I would miss my collection. I was reading a book the other day about collectors, and it said that collectors need to hold, touch, maybe even possess, even if only temporarily, whatever it is they collect. And I fit into that category. And they also have a need to show to everyone, and they're surprised if some others are not as excited as they are. Yeah. There are a number of people here who I need to thank, but since this is not the Academy Awards, I will only mention just a few. Eugenia Zeverlita, the coordinator of this, is much to be commended. Certainly Dr. Paul Hansen, who was the person that at my wife Margaret's suggestion, we called from the United States and said, do you want all these bugs? And, and he said right away, oh yes, for sure. I mentioned, of course, Dr. Gustavo Gutierrez, who was very excited and happy. And I want to publicly mention, I know he feels sad already because there isn't a permanent building for this like he promised me there would be. But I'm assured that he's very sad that it didn't happen and that he will try really hard to get a new building as soon as possible. Now, public, everybody knows that if that doesn't happen, remember. Okay. Also, Professor Hammer of the University of Costa Rica was a person who had known about me through Carolina Biological, where I was a biologist for over 30 years. And when I went to visit his classrooms and all, there were many Carolina Biological models and whatever. And when I came to see him, it was like, Darwin had showed up or something. And also Dr. David Rubik of Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, with whom I've gone on many collecting trips to many places, particularly Gabon, West Africa, Switzerland, many parts of Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, and have been able to get into places that I wouldn't be able to get into except for a Smithsonian connection. Now, when I realized that I had to leave all my insects here, it was inconceivable to me to not have some bugs on hand to tell about and display to children in particular back in the States. Sadly, my personal collection, though packed and ready for shipment to me in the United States, was not acceptable to our packing company, so it sat unobserved in storage for 2.5 years. It was too expensive to transport by air, even if a university or museum would have it. Of course, this collection was always meant to stay here in Costa Rica. So, I am here now happy to know that part of my collection will remain preserved at Silvatura Park, Monteverde, whose new generation of owners have plans to move to have more scientific education in the park, and that my personal Whitten collection, which you see here before you, will be maintained, displayed, and studied here at the University of Costa Rica for as long as there are those among you who continue to harbor a childlike wonderment about nature and the beauty and glory of the wonderful world of arthropods. Thank you for coming and enjoy. I got these, a lot of them I collected, but also I traded with people all over the world. I belonged to various societies like the Lepidopterist Society, the Coleopterist Society, the Arachnologist Society, the American Society of Entomologists. Many people around the world will trade insects with you. And so often I went with my children and my wife and collected butterflies and mailed them to other countries, and they sent me ones from their countries. In this box are weevils. Weevils are destructive. They suck out the juices of plants and sometimes cause considerable agricultural damage. But these are some of the largest in the world that come from right here in Costa Rica. These are scarab beetles. These are ones that roll balls of dung around and bury the dung in the ground and lay egg on the ground. And in Egypt, they're revered as being sacred scarabs, because the Egyptians saw them coming out of the ground in the desert, and to them that indicated resurrection. Even if you don't have an interest in scarab beetles now, when you die, you're going to be meeting a lot of them. That's what they mainly do, is bury whatever is around. These are buprestid beetles, metallic wood-boring beetles, and there again are pests and cause damage to trees and forests, but they're some of the most beautiful of all beetles, metallic and iridescent, and in many countries people make necklaces and headdresses and all using these beetles as ornamentations, along with feathers of birds and so forth. Buprestidae. These are ground beetles. They're beetles that are on the ground, as the name implies, and most of them are shaped like these are, but some of these ones here from Java and Borneo are flattened in that direction so they can go between tree bark. Roaches, for example, are flattened the same way. Fleas are flattened in this direction to go between hair. So very special adaptations for special microenvironments. These look like dominoes, quite unusual. These are some of my favorites. The Smithsonian paid for my going with Dr. David Rubik to Gabon, West Africa. And when we were there, we saw and collected Goliath beetles. The Goliath beetles are the heaviest beetles on Earth. And in the Guinness Book of World Records, I think that elephant beetle is listed as maybe a heavier one, but this is often listed as a bigger one. These are Cerambycidae, or longhorn beetles, because they have long antennae, and they're also detrimental to crops, to trees, but have beautiful colors and long antennae. This is the rarest, perhaps the rarest beetle in my collection. This is Titanus giganteus from the headwaters of the Amazon. And it's the world's largest beetle if you account for the length and width of the same thing. I got this beetle from Dr. Paul Zahl of National Geographic, who came to visit in Oregon, where he did an article on newts and salamanders for the Smithsonian, or rather for National Geographic. And I took him collecting and so forth. After he left, I bugged him for years to maybe send me one of these beetles, because I'd read an article in 1959 called Giant Insects of the Amazon, in which Paul Zahl managed to bring back about a dozen of these for the first time anybody had been able to do so. And this is the actual beetle that was on the cover of National Geographic magazine in 1959. It's not on the outer cover, but if you open the cover, the magazine up in the middle to the article, that beetle is there. So this is a movie star beetle. More longhorn beetles with beautiful colors. One of the interesting things, I belong to the Rotary Club at home, and there are, I don't know, maybe 80 people there, and I can only remember the names of maybe 10 people, but I can remember thousands and thousands of Latin names just immediately, because that's how my brain is set up. But can't remember people's names, so not a good thing. These are among the biggest beetles of Costa Rica, the Dynastes Hercules, the Hercules beetle. And the males have the big horns and the females don't have any horns. When tourists come, what we explain is with scarab beetles that the males are horny and the females are not horny. and they remember that. These are these are the first bugs, the only bugs here in this room. These are the family Hemiptera, or true bugs. And the largest in the world are these Lithoceros beetles from South America, and Costa Rica has ones this size. In Louisiana, in the springtime, when the first rains come, millions of these are in the corners of storefronts where you slip and slide on them on the sidewalk, and and cars slide on them. When they bite you, it feels like you stuck your finger in a light socket, and they're called electric light bugs because of that reason. More longhorn beetles, cerambycid beetles, including some beautiful ones from Formosa. The scorpions, now these are not insects, these are other kinds of arthropods. These scorpions, the biggest ones there, Pandanus imperator, I caught in Gabon, West Africa. And you can hold them if you're gentle with them, just like you can hold a tarantula. If you don't move them too quickly and just be calm, they usually just walk around on you. And I frequently do this for classrooms for the kids to get excited. Millipedes, in all the books it says millipedes are harmless, they eat plants and they're not dangerous. The truth is that in Costa Rica, I once caught a large millipede, one like this one here, and I didn't have time to do anything with it. So I put it in my pocket, and later in the afternoon I was sweating and all wet, and I realized I was burned, just like fire, because they give off acid and several other chemicals that will stain you and also burn your skin. So they really can be quite dangerous. So if you're out in the woods and you see a millipede, don't put it in your pocket. Most beautiful of all beetles in the world. These used to be called Plusiotis. In many cases, the taxonomy of these changes throughout the years. A bunch of professorial old men get together in a room somewhere like the Vatican, like the Pope, and they talk and they decide, we don't like that name, we're going to put a new name on it. But they have good reasons for it, because now, because of biotechnology, it's possible to understand the genetics of many of these. And whereas many butterflies look the same, it turns out that when you see the genetic structure, they're not the same. And so many have been classified incorrectly. And now we're learning more and more. With biotechnology, there's a whole new opening to taxonomy. The Plusiotis, anyhow, come in gold and silver and whatever, many colors, and the red ones are the most beautiful to me. Many of you may, if you're literate, you've read, I love horror stories like Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe, and one of Edgar Allan Poe's most famous stories is the gold bug, and he's really referring to a scarab beetle. And in the story, they have to drop a gold bug through the eye of a skull, and where it lands on the ground is where the treasure is buried. So go read stories by Edgar Allan Poe. It's very interesting. Probably the heaviest beetles in the world and most massive are the Cornusuelo, the elephant beetles. And I once had the good fortune to go to a place where there was a tree absolutely covered. There were hundreds of these beetles in one tree. It's very, very exciting to see. Margaret and I, when we were in Panama, I got one of these at a black light and tied a string to it and flew it around my head like a little kid with a model airplane. Very exciting. You have to kind of help it along. You got to kind of swing it out a little bit because it'll lose. It doesn't keep going too well. So you just put a little more help, and it makes a loud buzzing sound, and no batteries necessary. Anyhow, we ended up on CNN International with that video of me flying the beetle. So you might want to try that. But nowadays you want to protect these. A very terrible thing that happens in Costa Rica, very terrible, is that people take the horns of this beetle, Megasoma, and also the horns of Hercules beetle, and cut off the head and make a necklace with it and put this horn on there, and that's supposed to make them muy macho. Well, all of you women understand having a dead beetle horn hung on a string around your neck is no muy macho. These are among the most interesting of all insects, the mantids. The praying mantis is unusual because the female is much bigger than the male, and when the male mates with the female, after she mated, which takes very little time, she begins to eat the male, starting with his head, and he continues to copulate with the female until there's nothing left but his copulatory organs. And so it's a real women's liver bug. It comes out, the female always wins, and the male is just kind of dumb. Without a brain, he keeps on having sex until he's dead. If you're a biologist, you need to know all these things that happen. These are kinds of walking sticks. In the British Museum, this insect was misclassified for over 100 years. They thought it was a grasshopper, but it's not. It's a kind of walking stick. And this is the female, and this is the male. That looks nothing like the female, very entirely different, male and female. All of these grasshoppers, the females have this extension at the back of the body for laying eggs. They lay eggs in the ground or in the stems of plants. Costa Rica has the heaviest beetles in the world and biggest in the form of the Hercules beetles and these, the Megasoma. Megasoma means big body, and they're extremely interesting to people. In the United States, people in Idaho, where I am, people will call all excited that they found a giant beetle in their shower, and they'll come and they'll bring me a beetle that's about that big. They have no idea that beetles get this big. I think I went through these earlier, maybe, but this is one of the most amazing beetles in the world, Acrocynus longimanus. It's the harlequin beetle, harlequin-like clown, and has these beautiful patterns and colors. And indigenous people use this pattern in their art. I've seen them on vases and clothes, the same pattern. And when the wings are open, on the abdomen, on the tail, you will see a kind of a fungus that lives nowhere except on that beetle. And then there are little mites, little tiny mites, like almost like fleas on a dog, that are on the moss, on the fungus. And then finally there are little pseudo-scorpions, little tiny arthropods, look like big scorpions, that are on there. So you have 3 kinds of animals in one plant, all on this, riding around on this one beetle, which is an amazing closed ecosystem. And these animals use this beetle for transportation. The beetle flies around to a flower where it gets pollinating, and the little pseudoscorpions and mites will crawl off and get on the next beetle for a ride to somewhere else. It's a remarkable insect. Walking sticks from New Guinea, phasmids they're called, and they exhibit phytomimicry, which means they pretend to be sticks and leaves. And they look just like sticks and leaves, except sometimes to add to the effect, they will all start to shake like this to pretend they're leaves or sticks moving in the wind, which gives them away because you see there's no wind blowing and you see all these things moving. So they kind of defeat their own purpose there. Katydids are a common name in English. These are types of grasshoppers. They're detrimental to plants. They come out at night, and in the forest when you see lots of leaves with many holes all around the leaves, it's caused by these eating the leaves. But they're beautiful. This is one of the longest insects in the world. I saw one at the British Museum that was about that long, which is about as big as any get. Again, a giant walking stick. These walking sticks are also from New Guinea, and this is a very interesting story. The fishermen in New Guinea, primitive fishermen, they take this insect and they cut off that part of its leg with that spike on there, and they use it for fishing, like a fishing hook. And to catch the bait fish, the bait to put on the hook, they go to where there's a big spider web. The biggest spiders in the world, orb-weaving spiders, live there. They're like the Nephila golden spiders in Costa Rica, but even bigger, about that big. And those spiders make a web that has a higher tensile strength than steel. And so the people in New Guinea, they get a stick, a forked stick like this, and put another stick across the top to make a triangle. And they go up to the web and push it on the web in the middle. The web falls all around it, and then they can use that web like a little net to catch the bait fish, to put on the hook, to catch the big fish. It's amazing what indigenous people can do. Some of these have wings. Normally they have their wings closed. When they open their wings as a defense mechanism, they can flap their wings and make a loud noise. And to frighten you, they can also flip their tail up like a scorpion. They're harmless, but they scare people because they're like a scorpion. They also can shoot out a chemical into your eyes or to the eyes of a predator that will momentarily blind them to frighten them off. So it's interesting with the insects, the ones that are dangerous are not the big scary ones, but the little tiny ones like the black widow spider and the brown recluse spider and the mosquito and the fly. They don't look dangerous, but they're like the fly and the mosquito are the most dangerous of all insects because they carry so many bad diseases and parasitic diseases. These big things, if you were a tourist and one of these lands on you in the bed, you'd be terrified, but it's harmless. It can't hurt you. More walking sticks from New Guinea. These are beautiful, called walking leaves from Ceylon, and they really do look like leaves. I love the walking sticks. It was very difficult to get these. These are many of these are very rare, and it took a lot of trading with people. I forgot to mention, I belong to the Phasmid Study Group in London, England, and it's people who study walking sticks. And it used to be you could send ova, live eggs, through the mail and grow your own walking sticks. And I once had a terrarium absolutely full of these called a spiny devil walking stick. The most beautiful butterflies in the world, of course, are the morphos. Morpho means beautiful or shapely. And as beautiful as these are, understand they have no color. They are brown. There's no color there at all. The reason it looks like color is because when the white light hits the wings, it's diffracted and refracted into the color blue that goes back to your eyes. But it has no color, no pigment. If you look at them from the side, in many cases, you see they're brown. We go from the beautiful to the ugly. We got the cockroaches here. The roaches in this forest are not dirty. They're pretty clean. They're not carrying disease and all. But if it's in a city around the garbage, they will carry lots of germs, bacteria, and so forth, the same way rats do. And so they can be dangerous for carrying disease organisms in a heavily populated area. The way the world is now, more people are moving to the cities, which makes more chance of disease because people are so concentrated into small areas. And many parasitic diseases that only existed in the tropics now are moving more north. Things like malaria and so forth. Yep. More scarab beetles. These right here, this kind here is Dynastes neptunus. In Costa Rica you have Dynastes hercules. So this is unusual, it has two big horns. These are from the Atlas Mountains in China and Central Asia, and they're called Atlas beetles. And that beetle is the strongest animal in the world for its size. This beetle weighs so many grams and it can lift several pounds unaided. The same as if you went out and lifted the bus with all the people on the bus over your head. In relativity, that's the strongest animal in the world, the Atlas beetle from Indonesia. Here is the biggest spider in the world, Théroposa leblandi from French Guiana. This spider is alive at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. right now, and it's being shown to children. And so people say, well, how can it be there? Anybody got any ideas? There it is. You see it. it's the molt. The spider molts. It sheds its skin. And so that's not the spider, it's just the skin of the spider. And so when I was at the Smithsonian, I begged them, please let me have this skin of this spider. And so this is not the real spider, just the skin. And it's the largest of all spiders. The indigenous people where this lives in Mato Grosso, Brazil, and so forth, they eat these. And the raccoons, you know, they eat things, and they go like this and clean everything up. Well, in South America, the same animals take these spiders and they go like this, and it rubs off all the little hairs. They have many little hairs on the abdomen that if a predator comes along, they go like this and knock the hairs into the face of the predator. They call urticating hairs, and they have recurved barbs, and when they stick in you, it's very terrible. I know a person who went into anaphylactic shock from washing some of these to get the oil off of them for our collection. The Indians in Mato Grosso and so forth eat these. They put them over the fire first to singe off the hair. And I'm told that it's very good to eat. So when you think of this, just think of you but eating another crab. And, you know, it's no different. It's just that we have this thing in our mind that it's a terrible thing. Here we have some more big spiders. This is not a tarantula. The real tarantula lives in Europe, and it's a very small wolf spider that can bite and hurts, but not dangerous. And its name is Lycosa tarantula. The species name is tarantula. The real animal with the genus tarantula isn't even a spider. It is, where is it? It's one of these, right, this kind of thing right here has the name tarantula, first name tarantula. The little wolf spider, like that one right over there, has the name Lycosa tarantula, and it's still a small spider. In Europe, there was a time when many people were around and were being bitten by that little wolf spider, and it hurt, and some would faint and be scared and all, and it became almost like when the Beatles came to town, the musicians from England, and all the girls are swooning and they're passing out. They're so overwhelmed. When this spider was biting some people, many people would all fall to the ground and dance around like they were being poisoned. And that became the dance of the tarantella. If you're a musician and play fast music on the piano, it's the dance of the tarantella. The people dancing around because they've been bitten by the deadly poisonous tarantula that's going to kill them, which isn't true. But then people came to the New World, and they saw these huge spiders, and they had heard from their great-grandparents about the deadly tarantula spider, and so they call these tarantulas. So this doesn't even have the name tarantula in it, but that's now become the tarantula spider. A very interesting story, I think. These are called sulfurs, and they are the insects for which the term butterfly originated, like flying butter, because they have yellow and orange and so forth. And they have pigment color, actual chemicals in the wings that have real color, as opposed to the morpho that has structural color. And whereas this kind of color lasts indefinitely because it's not a pigment, this kind of color will fade in the sunlight. Like if this stays here with the sun coming in for a month or so, it'll all fade out to white. Sulfur butterflies. More sulfur butterflies. These are from places like China and Bali and Java and Madagascar, Central Arab Republic. They have beautiful patterns. Many of these, the top and the bottom are entirely different. Like that's the top side, that's the bottom side, and so forth. Everyone knows about the monarch. The monarch butterfly migrates thousands of miles. Butterflies in the family Danaidae, the Danaids, are animals that have larvae that eat poisonous plants like milkweed. And so the gusano, the larva, eats the poisonous plant and then develops into the adult butterfly. The bird tries to eat the butterfly, it tastes bad, spits it out. So the birds won't eat the monarch. So here comes another butterfly that's not a monarch, that tastes good. And it flies along in the same area with these. So this is the model, and this is the mimic. And this one gains protection because the bird doesn't know that that's not a monarch. And in the tropics, you have many mimicry rings, very complex of different groups of butterflies and moths. There are moths that fly during the daytime imitating impalpable butterflies. It's very complicated and spectacular. So it's very important now because of biotechnology to understand the genetic code of these insects, because otherwise just to look at them, you would say that that and that must be about the same thing, and they're not. It's fascinating. In the tropics, for survival, insects have to do all sorts of remarkable things to keep from being eaten. They got to pretend to be plants. They got to pretend to be thorns. They got to look like they're real scary, even though they're harmless. Many things they do. It's a hard life to be a bug in the rainforest. These are all Africa. I caught many of these in Gabon, West Africa, and the way you catch these is, this is maybe a story that it's maybe X-rated. Don't know if I should tell it, but I will tell it because you all look like you can deal with it now. In Gabon, West Africa, I was there in a place where there were gorillas and chimps and bonobos and research going on in a very remote part. And there were many buildings around in a circle, and it was all dirt out here. And it began to be the beginning of the rainy season. And all of a sudden, many little skipper butterflies, little small butterflies, started showing up. And then they had a party for the logger people there and some of the people from France and research people. And they had beer and so forth. The African beer is a big bottle like this. So anyhow, I drank quite a bit of beer. And then I knew these butterflies come to fecal material and urine, and they come to detergent. Because in the rainforest, they don't have the electrolytes. They don't have sodium, lithium, potassium that they need for their system. So they come particularly to urine. So I was feeling pretty good. So I urinated in a beer bottle. I went out the next morning onto the flat area, and I wrote my name with the bottle, made Valentines. All of a sudden, the butterflies start coming, and they completely made, out of butterflies, all of those letters. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So, when you get bored and you're out in the middle of nowhere, that's something you can consider. But what's funny is my wife was wondering how could I, dot the I's and cross the T's, and I explained it was with a bottle. Oh, these are beautiful. They look like Persian carpets, and that's where they're from, is from Java and Buru and India, and they have these beautiful patterns. The dead leaf butterflies from India are the best mimics of any kind of butterfly. All of these are nymphalid butterflies. The family Nymphalidae is the biggest family of butterflies. Much of the taxonomy and classification is being changed all the time, whereas Nymphalidae used to encompass many different subgroups. Now the subgroups have become major groups. It's like there are what are called the lumpers and the splitters. The lumpers are the ones that want to put a whole lot of different things together under one name. The splitters are the ones who want to divide them into many sections. And there's always argument among taxonomists whether to do one or the other. This is called a rice paper butterfly and lives in Indonesia. And when it flies, it sort of floats around like paper in the wind. And so it's a very beautiful butterfly that moves very slowly and very romantic. It's used a lot in art, in different paintings where you see ferns and so forth. This butterfly is off. It would be in Indonesia, Japan, China, the Philippine Islands, the South Sea Island. Oh no, this is not. It's all South Sea Island. These right here, you would see in Israel. These beautiful, they're called blood red cymatho butterflies, and they're nymphalid butterflies, have these beautiful colors. Let's see, these right here are from like Ceylon and Java, and these are called jungle queens and jungle kings, they're common names, and they're almost as big as owl butterflies in Costa Rica, and they're similar in this that they have these false eye spots. You know how the owl butterflies has the two big eyes? Well, in Indonesia, these butterflies have those ocelli or false eye spots too. And so this shows that once the continent of Africa and Madagascar and all was connected to Central and South America millions and millions of years ago, so that there's a common ancestor for the owl butterflies in Central America and the palms in Indonesia. It shows that way back when those continental drift was all connected together. Another good example of that. Oh, here is mimicry again. The monarch type butterfly here is the females look like this. So then the females of another kind of butterfly here that tastes good pretend to be the monarch there. And all over the country, particularly Africa, you have this mimicry thing. It's very complicated. This is called a Paris swallowtail, but it's from Thailand and has the beautiful metallic colors like the morphos do. Here is more mimicry. You can't really appreciate it unless you're a bug lover, I guess, but like these butterflies taste good. They taste bad. This kind tastes bad, but this is a swallowtail butterfly, like with the tails, you know, the main kind of butterfly you see with the long tails. It tastes good and pretends to be the nasty tasting one. Again, more sulfurs. In Costa Rica, the ground would be covered with these, just all over. It's amazing. One day there are no butterflies. The next day there were so many butterflies you could not walk. I mean, it's solid as far as the eye can see, with the wings flat, just like cards stacked up. Millions and millions and millions.
From where? Which part of Costa Rica?
Gabon, West Africa.
Ah, okay.
In Costa Rica it can get that way too, but it was particularly that way in Africa. Now over here, swallowtail butterflies from Indonesia, from China, India, Australia, just a variety of beautiful swallowtail butterflies. Many of these butterflies do what's called puddling. If there's a muddy, wet place, again, they need to have sodium, lithium, potassium ions. And in the rainforest, most of the chemicals are in the trees, not on the ground, not in the rotting leaves. And so the butterflies and many animals cannot get these nutrients. So they go to a stream or a place where there's water running, and along the banks will concentrate sodium, lithium, potassium chemicals. And so the butterflies go there and they put out their proboscis and suck up the chemicals and shoot the waste out the back. It's like a little pump. If you watch them, you see they get in the water here and it's shooting out the back. And just cover the ground. There can be so many that it just covers all the muddy banks. And that's what the swallowtails do. This is the national butterfly of Australia, called the blue mountain butterfly, and it's on their stamps and so forth, very much like the morpho is here with the structural color. And some of these others are close relatives of that. Again, swallowtails are called swallowtails because they have these long tails. These are from mainly Indonesia. This is from Tanzania, Africa, where the birthplace of mankind. Tanzania, yeah. These are the rarest butterflies that I donated to the collection. They're the Ornithoptera, or bird wing butterflies. And they're the largest butterflies in the world. The original type specimens, the first ones ever seen, were brought to the British Museum. And the collectors used to go out with long nets and try to catch these in the trees. But they flew so high in the trees that they couldn't reach them. So finally, the only way they could collect them was the British Navy went out with very fine shotgun pellets, little tiny, and shot the butterflies down out of the trees. And in the British Museum, I got to visit with Dr. Vane Wright, who's the curator of Ornithoptera, and I got to actually pull out the drawers and see those original specimens from way back when, Ornithoptera birdwing butterfly. So they're gorgeous. The males are the ones with the pretty colors. The females are the biggest, and they're brown to protect the eggs. The males are the fancy ones. These are the two largest butterflies of Africa. Papilio antimachus is this one here with the long thing. And Papilio zalmoxis. Africa, this is a good point to make. Africa is huge, huge country. Costa Rica is a little tiny country. There are more kinds of butterflies in tiny Costa Rica than all of Africa. Costa Rica has enormous wealth in biodiversity. Why it's so important to continue to protect the remaining rainforest, because different elevations, different little bodies of water, it's not the same. You go from one mountain to the next mountain. What lives here doesn't live there. So important to quit cutting all the trees down. Think of Arizona, where they make roads through. People squatters come, cut down the trees because they need to have the firewood, killing all the animals, plants, and so forth. It's got to protect the rainforest, or there will be nothing left for children and grandchildren. More Ornithoptera, bird-winged butterfly. You know, the people who come here with the binoculars from Cornell University, they're ornithologists. Ornitho is bird, ornith, and bird wing, it's like ornith. Let me see how I can explain it. Ornithoptera, ptera, P-T-E-R-A means wing, and ornitho means bird, so bird wing. Ornithoptera, bird wing. So again, the males, these butterflies originally started on one land mass, a big island, and then the island started breaking apart into smaller islands. And over millions of years, this original butterfly, which looked like that, it's on certain islands it developed into the orange color and the blue color and so forth on different islands. This is called Raja Brooks birdwing, and it lives in India, and it's named after the first white Raja of India, Ornithoptera brookiana albescens. These have beautiful names. This is the rarest butterfly you have here now. There are none of these except right here in this museum. This is Ornithoptera alexandri, which is the world's largest butterfly. That's the male. The female is about that big and brown, but this is the pretty one, the male. And it was very hard for me to give that butterfly away. Mucho lacrimosa, because it's so hard to get. I don't have the female. It's illegal to have these butterflies unless it's in a university or a collection. If I took that butterfly home and went through customs, put me in the thing and go to jail, because it's changed, which is good because it's protecting them. The area where they live, though, is a very small amount of forest, just a few miles, and people are trying to cut down the trees. And when they do, the world's biggest, most beautiful butterfly will be gone. But Ornithoptera alexandria, Queen Alexandria's birdwing. This one is another one, because the British were the first ones to explore that part of the country, New Guinea and all. Many of them named butterflies and insects after the Queen. So this is Ornithoptera Victoria regina, Queen Victoria's birdwing. And Ornithoptera Victoria Isabelli, like in Spain, Queen of Spain, and so forth. They have very interesting names. But these are the rarest of all butterflies, because they come from such a small country where the rainforest is being destroyed every day. These are the cicadas. They make the loudest sound of any insect. A tree full of these, about as far as that wall over there, is a louder sound than a pneumatic drill. Very loud. And they have underneath, they have these two look like drums, right there and there, like timpani. I play timpani in the symphony, and they're called tympanum, like the tympanic membrane in your ear, and this is hollow. It's empty like a guitar case or the timpani drum, and these little drum heads vibrate. You've probably seen a little thing like a little clicker where you push on the little thing, go, a toy for children, and you just push it just a little bit and it goes. That's the way those are attached. Just a little. It's a muscle that's real tight, and then a little hook moves from the muscle and it goes pop and makes that sound, and it goes, many times, and that's what that loud sound is. So it makes that. It's for mating, for attracting, and this insect lives underground in some cases for 17 years, underground in the pupa stage, like this right here. I mean, in the dark, underground. The cicada adult lays eggs, and on the side of the tree, and this or in the ground, and underground develops this kind of an animal that stays there in the dark 17 years. And then one day, all together, millions of these come out of the ground and climb up the trees and start hollering, making a loud noise, all over the world. And they're not all 17-year, but
Do they live outside there?
oh, just a matter of days, a few days, and they die. But the underground, so all their life underground. What a strange way to be. This is the largest of all the wasps in the world. In America, it's called the tarantula hawk wasp. You know what a hawk is? A raptor bird. And because this wasp attacks the giant tarantula spiders, and it stings the spider, but it doesn't kill it. It just paralyzes it, and it drags it down a hole in the ground and covers it up. And it flies away to go find another tarantula. And in underground, the larva begins to eat the tarantula, which is still alive. And it may take for many weeks. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The tarantula stays alive because it has to have fresh food, so it can't die. So the tarantula is still alive. So after many weeks, out of the hole comes one of these wasps. And it goes, finds another tarantula. So that's the example of parasitism. These are among the most beautiful of all bees, the orchid bees. These are the bees that pollinate orchids. Many of these I got from Dr. David Rubik of the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. He's probably the expert in the world on euglossine bees, the beautiful orchid bees. And they are specialized. The orchids, certain orchids, the beautiful flowers look to the male bee, it looks like female genitalia. They think this is the back end of a female, a giant, super sexy female. So the male bee comes and flies and goes in the opening, and when it goes through, it's slippery in there and falls down into some water and swims around, can't get out. The only way out, can't go back out that way, has to go over here. There's one way to climb through. Goes through that opening, and when it goes through, there's a little rocker arm on there. And on top of the bee is the little pollen that it got from the last orchid. So this rocker arm, here comes the bee, rocker arm goes down and takes that pollen away, and the bee keeps going, and then the other end comes down, and it puts the pollen of the new flower on there. The bee goes out, finds another sexy flower, goes to it. And it's pollination by euglossine bees. Isn't that a great one?
Yeah, you have to be brave to survive.
Oh yeah, it has to be, and that's why the orchids are so complex and fancy, to attract the male. Now there are many other animals that pollinate orchids, but this is particularly what the orchid bee does. These are called leucanid beetles, and they have these huge jaws. The males do in particular, and they look like some kind of elk or moose or deer. And they're called stag beetle. In Europe, the big deer with the big antlers is called a stag. So these are called stag beetles, and they can pinch with these big jaws. This kind is from Chile, and one of the most spectacular. I mean, what an amazing thing to have a mouth that big, you know. these are more leucanid beetles. They're on the ground, and the way you catch these is you dig a hole and put a jar in it, and cover the jar with a rock with just a space to go in, so the rain doesn't get in the jar. And at night, these are walking around trying to catch things like a jaguar, you know, and they fall into the jar. Next morning, you just come pick them out of the jar. The way you catch most of the moths, Mariposa nocturna, is to put up a white sheet with using ultraviolet light or mercury vapor light. And like up at Monteverde, where I have some more of my collection at Silvatura, I lived there for 16 years. Well, no, not 16 years, for about, I guess, 5 years. And I used to go out on the roof of the building above the museum we have there and put up a sheet, and I would go out there. What's that?
Where do you?
In Monteverde, Silvatura Park has a big collection of our insects there, which are worth visiting to see.
I visited you there.
Oh, you look familiar. But anyhow, many people don't even know about it, but it's also worth visiting to see more of this kind of thing. But anyhow, when I would go out there in the beginning of the rainy season, a white sheet, within half an hour it was black with Mariposa nocturna and Escarabajos and so forth. So I love the black lighting at night. Anyhow, that's enough. You probably heard enough now. I'm very happy. I'm Richard Whitten. I'm a biologist, and I donated my personal collection to the University of Costa Rica, and I'm seeing it for the first time today, and I'm very, very excited and proud. This is a collection of the whole world, not just Costa Rica, and it's been beautifully curated and protected by Ricardo. Hey, Ricardo, this is gente más importante. He is the person who came to our museum when we first came here as a little kid, and he was drooling to when he saw the insects. He's a collector like me, and he wants them all for himself, and so he brought me some, and we traded back and forth, and so I'm so happy that he is the person who has ended up taking care of my children.
It's my pleasure and my honor to be here and taking care of these babies.
Yeah, so I can go home now and feel like my life's work is protected.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. You're my good friend.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
It's lacrimosa. Makes me very excited.
You don't have to say anything.
Yeah, okay. Before you stop, I want to play one song on the
I'm
accordion.
gonna bring you the accordion.
Yeah, bring the accordion. Anyhow, if you play the pipe organ, you can't do it very much because it's too big. You can't carry the pipe organ. So the accordion is the best thing you can do, and it's fun for parties. So if we were in Germany, and where they were bringing out all the beer steins and all, this would be the kind of music. let me go down to the Mississippi. Let me go down where the old folks live. Let me go down to the rich Jordan. Let me go down where the old folks just keep rolling on. Now you and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Cut that barge, lift that bale, get a little drunk, and you land in jail. Like I said, I'm a very shy retired.